Okay, great. Okay, are we ready to roll, Nick, do you think?
Freddie, I think we're ready to rock and roll here.
Okay, well, welcome everybody. Um, really lovely to see you all again. And I hope that, you're enjoying these sessions. We're going to try and keep it under an hour this week because we tend to run away, and especially when I start talking. So I've given Nick the okay to go like that every now and again if he thinks I'm talking too much. But this evening, we're going to be talking about the internal dialogue. I'm going to hand over to Nick because this is one of his favorite subjects. And so, as I said, welcome everybody. And here he is, my friend, colleague, and partner in the Ministry of the Mind, Nick. Over to you, Nick. I'll let
Hey,
everyone.
everybody. Welcome back to our regularly scheduled breakthrough broadcast. It's good to have everyone back and see some familiar faces. I feel like I'm getting to know some of you after, the first couple of weeks was all new faces. So it's good to see some familiar faces. So yeah, as Freddie said, we were going to shorten up a little bit, and because I just don't want it to be such a big time commitment for all of you, and I don't want you to feel like you're missing anything. So we're going to, like we did last week, get into the hypnosis pretty quick and go from there. So today we are going to examine our internal voice, the internal dialogue, monologue, symphony, conversation, whatever's happening in your head that most people never have any idea about. So we're going to take a few minutes. We're going to do some exercises, and I want you to really listen to the conversations that happen in your head. Bandler and Grinder in Frogs and Princes, they said that they estimated that 99% of their clients that had anxiety or depression were just making pictures or talking to themselves in a certain way that was creating that state. And it's all just unconscious. So we're going to take what's in the shadows, what's unconscious, we're going to make it conscious. And then if we don't like it, we can change it. As Freddie says, it's just our imagination, right? So one of the inspirations for this, and I don't know if I got it from you, Freddie, but it definitely helped, was your story about how you talked about the voice that was in your head. You want to tell that story?
Yeah, well, as a young man, I think especially as young men, teenagers and early 20s, we do have our doubts as men. But I had the normal kind of internal dialogue going on whenever a business opportunity came up or anything that's going to put me out of my comfort zone. And the voice pretty much was just saying, you're never going to do it. You're going to fail. You're rubbish. There's no point. All of those things that go on in our heads, and most of us have those voices at times. And for a long time, like we all do, I assumed that was my voice saying that. And it would hold me back in certain ways. I was lucky enough at the time to have a woman that loved me and two kids that loved me in my early 20s. And so with that in mind, I would take chances I wouldn't take otherwise, because I knew whatever happens, I had a woman that loves me and two kids that love me. So I could pretty much attempt anything. But that voice was always there. You're never going to do it. You're always going to fail. You're never any good. And so I listened to it one day. I took some time out and I just listened to it. And it sounded a lot like my voice, but I realized it wasn't my voice. It was my father's voice. And, I don't believe that he ever really approved everything I did. And I know that sounds a horrible thing to say. And my dad died last year. He was 97. And I'm sure throughout his whole life, I don't believe that I ever heard him say that he was proud of me or anything else, which is pretty sad. But that voice was in my head, especially when I was a young man, until I realized whose voice it was. But I also had a mother. Luckily, I had a mother that thought the sun shone out of me. And she would only ever praise me and tell me that I could do anything. So my dad, because I'm very old, he had one of those wooden radios, the ones with the valves in the back. I don't know if you're any year old enough to remember them, but they had those valves in the back. And he wouldn't let anyone touch this radio. But in my mind, I just pictured this old wooden radio with two volume knobs on it. And one of them had my dad's name over the top, and the other one had my mum's name over the top. So I turned my dad's voice right down, and I turned my mum's voice right up. And I'm sure throughout my life, and I'm pretty old now, I'm sure in the background, my dad's been there going, but I couldn't hear him. And so just by changing that in my mind, it changed the way I thought. So that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. And, I know it's a cruel thing to say, but it was true. And that's how I've lived my life like that. So we have to look at that voice, listen to it. And that's what Nick's going to take you through. And just listen to that negative voice. If you have a negative voice in your mind, listen to it, see whose voice it is. And chances are it won't be yours. So have a listen, and we're going to change it throughout this evening. Because there are people in your life that do love you, that do believe in you, and maybe find that voice. So anyway, I'm going to hand back over to Nick. That's just the way I saw it. Okay.
So I did a session. I went to an event. I was part of this mastermind group, and I went to an event with a group of people, and I did this process with a friend of mine who she was complaining about her ex-husband and how she'd always get riled up with him. And so I did this process where I had her imagine his voice, and then we just changed it. I made it sound like Mickey Mouse. I had her imagine putting circus music to it. We put it way off in the background, and I also had her make some pictures of it. And I totally forgot I did this with her. And 2 years later, I was at another event, and she goes, I still can't think of my ex-husband without hearing him sound like Mickey Mouse. And she's like, and now I just laugh and I feel sorry for him. Versus before, she would get angry, she would get upset, and it would ruin her entire day. Just hearing, the voice in her head. So we're going to do that process, and it can stick with you for the rest of your life. And you can go back and change it at any time. So none of this is permanent. But let's have fun. Let's be playful. Let's see what's under the covers there. Does that sound good? Do you guys think there might be a voice somewhere lurking in the darkness that isn't helping you? Is that possible? Probably, right? All right. So we're going to do we're going to play here for a little bit. So when you hear this voice or voices, I want you to just observe it. How many of you, show of hands, how many of you meditate? Like you do a mindfulness meditation? Quite a few of you. So you may have practiced with this already. I want you to hear the voice come up with no judgment, but I want you to notice what it sounds like, where it's coming from. We call these the submodalities, right? What's the tone? Whose voice it is? And I want you to just start paying attention. So that's really the first step. All right, so we're going to do, I'm not going to call this hypnosis. So whatever you do, don't go into a deep trance just yet. We're just going to go into a nice meditative state where you're aware and you're listening in a dissociated state. So that voice isn't you. We're going to observe it almost like you would hear a song on the radio, right? A song on the radio isn't you. It's different from you. Same with these voices in our head. They're different from us. Does this make sense? Any questions before we start here? We're good. All right. So I want you to just get in a comfortable position like you would if you were going to meditate. And as you get comfortable and situated and listen to my voice, you can begin to feel into the sensations in your body, almost like if your body was expanding and relaxing at the same time. Noticing the sensation of your breath. And noticing any voice that comes up. I'm going to allow you to kind of take the wheels here. Take the wheel and listen on your own as you relax deeper. Just hear any voices that may usually speak to you throughout the day. And just notice. And if you get distracted, just coming back, being the observer of all of those voices that speak to you on a regular basis. And listen with no judgment, no filter. And remember, you are not that voice. You are the observer. In a moment, I'm going to have you open your eyes and just, if you would like, you can write down or take a note for what you heard, what you noticed, the submodalities of those voices or that voice. And just remembering what you experienced. There's no right or wrong. And whenever you're ready, coming back, taking a moment to connect with yourself and write down any notes if you would like. All right, if you would like to discuss this, we would love to talk about it because I think sharing your experience will help people. I think having this discussion and seeing what's, behind the curtain, the Wizard of Oz, as it were, back there making all the moves. So I'd love to hear from anyone who wants to share what your experience was like, what you noticed. Maybe you heard your to-do list or your mother-in-law. Diana, we'd love to hear from you. Oh, let me unmute you.
So, first of all, I tried to get on early and couldn't, and had to register 3 times, which I'm sure is my computer, which has been a nightmare. So I was still semi-frantic through the beginning, but listening to you and calming down. And then I quickly got into what I so often get into, whether it's meditation or hypnosis or any of these things, which is listening as a third party wanting to use this for my clients instead of experiencing it directly for myself.
Okay. And what were your feelings about that?
Well, I don't like it. I've been aware of it for a long time. I know it's, I'm supposed to be here for me.
Okay, good. So we're going to get into that specifically, how we can start to make that shift. How would that be if you could just completely let go in these experiences and not even have to think about that?
Oh my God, that would be incredible.
Because you know that when you can do that, you're going to pick it up unconsciously anyway, right?
A lot better than I do my
Even better
mind.
Exactly. All right. So we'll get into that when we go to make some changes. But thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Great awareness. Who wants to share next? All right. There's got to be someone who wants to share. Who wants to share next? Freddy, how was your experience?
Yeah, it was good. It was good. I understand that our mind is never quiet. there's that monkey chatter going on all the time, 24/7. You know, the only time we get any kind of relief from it is when we're asleep, and then we're dreaming. But I have to say that maybe it's because I've been doing this work for a long time now, and maybe it's because of my shift towards, you know, my mantra now, which is unconditional self-love. I realized that the voice in my head is my voice, and I stopped beating myself up a few years ago. So generally, apart from the rubbish that comes up every now and again, it just, and you recognize that was just completely stupid, what I was saying in my head. But other than that, you know, I tend to believe in myself. So I tend to use that voice in that way. Every now and again, another voice pops up, but then you recognize it for what it is, and then you just go, no, that's not how it is anymore. So yeah, I mean, can I? While I was in, I was thinking about asking you, Nick, because you had that 7-day dark retreat, didn't you?
I did.
Well,
I
please
did.
tell everyone about that, because I can't even imagine what it's like to be in your with no one else's voice but your own voice in your head for 7 days like that.
I see Mark's hands up. So Mark, we'll get to you in a second. So Freddie's referring to, I did a 7-day darkness retreat in Mexico. And basically there's no light, there's nobody else. They just bring you food twice a day and you just sit in total darkness. So if you want to know what the view is like, just close your eyes for a minute. That's what it looked like for 7 days. And it's like, you get to a point where you can't repress emotions anymore, right? There's no, you can't distract yourself with food or with television or with your cell phone or with drama or even anything you see, right? So those emotions that are in you, they just work their way to the surface and they bubble up. So Freddie, it would be this like, I'd have some anger that would just come up and it would be like, I'd just be in the energy of it and there's nothing I could do about it. And then, yeah, that you know, the voice that it plays and you kind of get used to it and you notice what it's doing and you see patterns and it brings memories up to show you them in different ways. It was quite the experience.
Mm.
It was quite the experience. So I did learn a lot about myself and about the process and you know, kind of what we're working on here, how to make those shifts and build relationships with those voices or change them completely.
And was there ever a moment of silence?
Yeah, I think there was. I think there was. But yeah, it's a pretty constant. There's ideas and pictures and it's a pretty constant thing. I mean, you have to really concentrate to keep the silence. And even then it's, you know, things come in and you let them go. Come in and let them go. So
Yes.
little pieces of it. Mark, we'd love to hear from you. How you doing? Hold on, I think
It sounds off, Mark.
there he goes.
There we go. Yeah, I had to unmute myself for some reason. So just as a quick spin-off. So with your experience, Nicholas, there was no context. It wasn't Buddhist related or other related. No, interesting.
No, it was just me related.
Okay. No, because I took a challenge from a Buddhist teacher of doing a 3-hour meditation every day for a week. And it took me a year to work up the courage. And I finally did it. And I will say that with concentration meditation, which is what I was been learning, is I did get to a point where the thoughts would just disappear.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, but what I wanted to share is, so I had trouble getting into that voice because for me that voice is only strong in the morning, I guess because of my meditation. But a while back I did something with landmark education, and I remember I wrote we had to write the story of our life as a complaint. And at the very end of it, I looked at the title, which was Unworthy and Inferior, and I was just kind of blown away that was the voice which defined my life and has then resulted in me kind of being an overachiever and always on the lookout. It doesn't matter what I read, I'm like, is it true? It's probably not true. Let me double check the references. So for me, it's like a strong attitude, like a river that's just always pulsing through me. But I will say the more I meditate, the more I see it and say, oh, do I really need to do that? So, but thank you.
So there's a few things to unpack here. You said you had trouble getting into that voice. What does that mean? Was there a voice that you weren't expecting, or did you not hear anything at all?
Well, I'm so used to in meditation that to my concentration is strong enough now that I just go right into it. And so
Okay.
I don't know how to get back into that voice other than like notice it throughout the day when I'm triggered by things, or
Sure, sure.
early morning when I'm triggered just by waking up and I'm like, oh my God, I'm here again.
Sure, sure. And I think many of us, I'm going to speak for a lot of people on this call, have this feeling of we need to achieve something to be worthy, right? Like Mark and I aren't the only ones here, right? And so what happens is, you bring a C home to your parents and they're not happy with it. And so then it just creates this drive. Well, I got to go get an A in order for them to approve of me. And so that's never their intention. They always have this positive intention for you just to make the most out of yourself, right? And to fulfill your potential. But all of us probably have this experience on some level of, well, now I have to go achieve in order to be loved and accepted. So it's this, it creates a drive in us, which isn't always it's not a bad thing, right? Mark, that drive has given you certain skills, certain successes. It's given you, a certain lifestyle. But we also, when we're free from that, then we can keep the skills that we've developed as a part of trying to prove that we're worthy, but then we can start to feel worthy. Does this make sense? This may be another call, is digging into the root of that program, because what we have to do to get loved and accepted is really our strongest driving force. And that's probably also what's creating the voice that you're hearing.
I have to say, can I just quickly say that
Absolutely.
if you really want to mess a group of people up, then get them to write the story of their life as a complaint. I can't think of a worse thing to ask people to do, because if we all did that, how miserable would we all be? Get them to write their life story as a story of love and success and happiness. We all have that in our life as well. If we were to write that story, but why would you ever ask a group of people to write their life story as a complaint? I just think, sorry, Mark, I think it's the worst thing that I've ever heard anyone ask anyone to do. Sorry, mate.
It was actually a wonderful experience because what happens, so the part I left out is you write your story as a complaint, and then you have the joy of reading it to somebody, and their only job is to listen. Well, hold on. So what to me blew me away is somewhere around the fourth or fifth reading of the story, it just completely disappeared. It was gone. It just blew me away. And I remember looking for it and it wasn't there. And then I went off into another room and I could feel it sort of like tick back in as I was triggered just by people and, things to do. So
yeah, I still,
I understand your
I'm pleased it disappeared for you. I just feel sorry for the 5 people who are now traumatized by your life story as a complaint. That was, I just think I'm looking at them walking around with that story in their head. I mean, that's just like, I just think it's the most devastating thing I've ever had anyone ask anyone to do. But anyway, I'm glad it worked for you, Mark. But why not get people to focus on all the the things that work well for them in their life? Either way, you're going to look back, and either way, looking back for me is just, and I've said this before, because most of the therapies out there are based on looking back and focusing on all the trauma in your life and the rubbish in your life. And my thinking on this, and I've said it before, it's okay to look back, glance, don't stare. And most therapies out there are focused on staring at all the rubbish in your life. For me, it's the way to keep people in therapy forever. But I'm pleased for you at work, Mark. But it's traumatized me thinking about those poor people having to write that story. Anyway, sorry.
That's great. So I think the gift is a lot of times when you allow it to come into conscious awareness without judgment, then you can transmute that into the future that you're creating for yourself. And so that was kind of part of this job with the first round here, was to listen to that voice without judgment and just know kind of what's driving beneath the surface. And then we can start to change it. Does everyone have a pretty clear idea of what that voice drives you to do and it makes you feel throughout your day? Any questions on that? All right, so now we're going to do a quick exercise, and I want to have you connect with, I want you to pick maybe one of those voices. If there was multiple, just pick one. Maybe the one that disturbs you the most, or that used to disturb you the most. And I want you to ask it, what is its positive intention? Right? If we have a voice that makes us feel unworthy, I know it sounds like it's negative and we don't want it, but at the root, it's just trying to get us to act in a way so that we can get loved and accepted by our tribe. So underneath this, there is a positive intention. Diana, you shared, right? Your voice is trying to get you to get new skills so you can be a better hypnotherapist, right? You're trying to learn as you do it. So it's not negative, but also we can flip the script on it a little bit. So I want all of you, we're going to do this, just a quick exercise, reconnect with that voice. Diana, yeah, I'd love to hear from you.
Yes, I think that's where part of it comes from. And the rest is like escaping my own feelings. So
There's something to look at there. Yeah. Okay. Good. Well, thanks for sharing.
And I'm just stunned that you did that for 7 days in the dark.
There's really nowhere to hide from your own feelings.
I
when you
guess
do
not.
that. So maybe that's your next path, is a darkness retreat.
Not for a while.
We'd love to hear. We'd love to hear from you about it. All right. So get comfortable again. I want you to notice what voice is driving you to a particular thing, or something that maybe feels heavy, or what you might call negative. And again, just get situated. Ask that voice to show up. Again, notice all of the submodalities, the tone of speech, the volume, the location of it. And without judgment, just get a sense of the positive intentions of that voice. What is the positive intention of that voice? And get a sense of where that comes from. And when you have a sense of the positive intention and the origin of this voice, I want you to think about, do you want to change it? Do you want to have a new pattern? A new way of fulfilling that intention, or maybe a new intention altogether? And you can let your unconscious mind, that creative part of you, the part of you that knows everything about you, you can ask it to generate a new response, a new voice, a new way of meeting that intention. And as you do, I want you to notice how the voice is different now. How is your feeling about the voice different now? And now's the time where you can make any changes to that voice. You can make it louder, softer, faster, slower. You could put background music to it. You could change the location of that voice. Whatever feels right for you. And when you're sure that this new voice or this new way of being for this internal dialogue is set, I want you to just allow your unconscious mind to make those changes now. Like a computer, upgrading its software, defragmenting any remainders of that old voice, completely upgrading. Letting that happen thoroughly and completely. As you come back into the present, into your body, wiggling your fingers and your toes, and bringing your full awareness and enthusiasm back to the conversation and ready to share. And take a moment if you need to and just jot down any notes you want to make. And the good thing is, after this process, you might say, you know what? I want to add Freddy's voice. I want to add one of my other mentors' voices. I want to add my grandparents' voice that encourages. You can add whatever you want. It's all in your imagination. I think we lost Diana, the other Diana.
She's back.
Diana, eyes open, wide awake. There she is. Feeling good, aren't you? Good. All right. So I'd love to hear from any of you. Did you make some changes? Did you notice the positive intention? Did that help you to feel better about the voice? Who wants to share first?
Bar's got a hand up.
Oh, there she is. All right. Hi, Bar.
Hey guys. So I noticed one of the voices, there were two dominant voices. One of them was criticizing the other person. And in terms of when I'm in conflict with people I care for.
Hmm.
And the positive intention was to prevent me from feeling guilty. If the responsibility is on them being whatever, then I feel less guilty and I'm less responsible for the situation that happens or the conflict or the problem. So realizing that helps me a little with being less criticizing of myself for doing that. And one thing that helped is using the Mickey Mouse voice. There are a few thoughts that repeat in conflict with my special person. And when I heard these thoughts in that speedy voice, it made me laugh. So it was less serious and a little more playful and allowed me to look at it as a little bit of ridiculous that I think that way. And then maybe accept that is mostly in my head and not necessarily actually happening or what's happening. It's my own representation of what's happening.
Yeah.
And then I can ask myself, is that true?
Yeah, that's to be able to step back from that for a moment and just to listen for a moment, and then to, like you say, you know, it's your perception of what's going on, and none of it outside of your head is real. And when you look at it like that and listen to those voices again, and to be big enough to accept the reasons why you are, the way that you're doing things that you do are sometimes excuses to make you feel better. And that's quite a big thing for most of us to accept, that it's, and I think I've been saying for a while, the conscious part of our mind is continually making things up to make us feel better because it doesn't want us to feel bad. But to be able to step back from that and listen to those excuses for why we're behaving the way we're behaving and ask, is that just an excuse to make me feel better? And then being honest about that to yourself is a big thing. But unless we step back from it, we just assume that voice is ours and our voice is always correct. So I think what you've done there, Bar, is a great thing. You can look at those conversations and those conflicts in a different way. So, well done.
Thank you.
And it's not the thoughts that are the problem. It's that we believe them. It's that we think they're us. And so this process is just bringing awareness to like, wait a second, there's this song on the radio that I don't like. When you get in your vehicle and you drive to work or the grocery store and there's a song on you don't like, you don't get angry. What do? You don't get like your self-esteem hurt. What do?
Change.
You just change the channel, right? Like it's that easy. You can hear a song when you practice this process, you can hear a song in your head and go, oh, I actually don't like that song. Let me just change songs. Does this make sense?
Yeah, I surrender to my thoughts a lot, and taking a pause and realizing that really helps.
Yeah.
And it's great you're bringing awareness to that, because most people, they never even realize that their thought, A, may not be true, and B, it may not be theirs. And C, they don't even notice it because it's running on an unconscious loop. Does everyone see that? And when you can realize like, oh, this loop has been keeping me in place, why don't I just delete the loop? That's where freedom comes from.
Now, they say that every thought begins as a pure thought, an absolute pure thought. But what happens is, and it happens in kind of, I don't know, microseconds. If you imagine all of your experience as a matrix between the creation of that thought, from wherever those thoughts come from, you imagine they just bubble up from somewhere, and they're pure thoughts, but by the time they travel up through the matrix of your experience of life and they reach your conscious mind, they're affected by everything that's ever happened to you, everything that's ever been said to you, everything that's ever hurt you. So although a thought begins as a pure thought, by the time it gets to your conscious mind where you're aware of it, it's been affected by all of the things that have ever happened to you. But there's nothing that outside of your head that you cannot change. There's nothing outside of your head that's not perception. And everything, when you start to look at the voices in your head, like we're talking here, or you think about your beliefs or your emotions, I know I'm without bringing us down as a human being to just chemicals and reactions and electrically excitable cells in our brain, we can decide. We can make a decision on. For me, it's very simple. A belief does this belief empower me or not? And if it doesn't, I know I can change it. Is what I'm feeling empowering me or not? If not, I can change that emotion, because none of it's real. None of it exists outside of our head. All of you are looking at me on the screen, and Bar could describe me to Blind, and Blind could describe me to Sharon, and Sharon could describe me to Sophia, and you probably think you're looking at the same thing. But if for one moment Bar could have the same perception Sharon has of me, it would be so vastly different. It would be kind of mind-boggling. It would be psychedelic, because I don't exist outside of your head except as perception. And it's the same with the voices in our head. But the voice in our head are so important. Can I just, Sharon had a change yesterday in as much as she decided you know, up until then, she was worried about making videos. Something shifted. The only thing could have shifted is the voice in her head. And so just by changing the voice in her head, you know, there's someone else. I hope I don't mind me calling you out here, Jenny. But Jenny, over the last 10 or 11 months, has changed your life. Have you not, Jenny?
Yeah, I have, yeah.
You've changed your life. Can you just remember what the dialogue was running in your mind before you made the decision to change your life, and what's going on in your head now? I know over the last 12 months, because you're in that community, the Irish convention community, and I've got some really positive voices, Kesh and Sharon, you know, and Brian and a few other people here. But what changed? Can you just allow us to know what changed in your mind? What's going through your head now? What you're saying to yourself now, and what you were saying? You don't have to share it, obviously, but what you were saying when you were stuck for all those years.
It would have been a loop of I don't belong here. I'm not good enough. There was a lot going on. I'm not worthy was mainly the main one. And then I had to step in and look at it from a different way and start looking at myself with love and compassion. So once I started doing that, everything kind of changed outwardly, I suppose.
Oh,
Sorry,
and what do you say to yourself now, Jenny, day to day? Can you share that?
What do I say on a day to day?
Yeah. What's the main thing that's keeping you moving forward and changing your life like you've changed it?
I just try and focus on making myself better than the version I was yesterday. So
Right.
the only competition I see is myself. Just as long as I can upgrade myself and give myself some compassion. So I look at myself lovingly now, as opposed to always looking at myself in a negative way. And doing other people's thinking was massive as well. That person thinks this of me. Making up these scenarios in my head, that was massive, you know?
Yeah. And letting go of that is a massive thing. Yeah. Thanks for sharing, Jenny.
Thanks, Jenny. So here's another little secret, a key that if you're meditators, you may know this. So the Buddha talked about there's two darts. There's the dart of judgment, right? We have this voice that judges us. And then it also creates this like almost counterforce that then judges the voice that's judging. And that's called the second dart. And so what we want to do is get to a point where there's no resistance to the thoughts. We're not believing it and we're not fighting it. Because when we fight it, we're just putting energy into this paradigm of I'm not worthy. Yes, I am. I'm not worthy. Yes, I am. Right. And so then it's this back and forth where it's equal and opposite energy. And so when you can rise above that and you can just be aware of like, oh, this thought came in that I'm not worthy. Oh, that's funny. Like there's no fighting it. There's no believing it. There's just letting it be. And when there's no resistance, what happens? It just passes out of the system. Right. And so I think most of us are in some way, we used to try to prove ourselves to be whatever we think we needed to be. When in reality, we can just drop that and just be, and we can change that voice. We can take control over that. So I'm going to teach you we're going to do one quick little install, and then Freddy's going to do a quick process to give you some strengthening suggestions and to help that voice out even more. So, I don't even remember what it was, but a few years ago, I was struggling with something. And I was like, all right, what do I need to believe, or what does my voice need to tell me? And I remembered this quote, this portion of Think and Grow Rich. How many of you have read that? By Napoleon Hill? And so he says, throughout this book, there's a secret. And he doesn't ever say what the secret is, but if you read every chapter, it's supposedly in there. Well, it occurred to me that the secret hidden in every chapter is the secret of persistence. Those that persist succeed. Do you know people that are persistent and don't succeed? Probably not, right? So what if there was a voice in your head that encouraged you to persist, that said, I will persist until I succeed? And so I want you to imagine, you can close your eyes for just a moment and imagine that voice that encourages you, that inspires you, that brings the best out of you. If that voice, anytime you needed it, anytime you wanted to quit, anytime you wanted to take your foot off the gas, if that voice would just tell you, you will persist until you succeed. And I want you to imagine hearing that voice in your head. I will persist until I succeed. And imagine a time when you might want to quit something and that voice automatically comes up. You will persist until you succeed. And when you get right to the finish line on a project and you want to get distracted and back off, that voice will automatically show up loud and it will say, you will persist until you succeed. And when you have a doubt as to whether or not you will succeed in something, that voice shows up. You will persist. You will succeed. And let that voice, that program, that persistence anchor deep in your nervous system. I will persist until I succeed. And imagine that flowing through you like a river. The energy of that persistence into every cell, every molecule. As you hear that voice, that feeling gets stronger. I will persist until I succeed. And let that lock into every part of you now, knowing that you are a persistent person and your success is inevitable. And once you realize your success is inevitable because you persist and because you are a persistent person, you can open your eyes and join us back in the room whenever you're ready. Now. So that's how we go about putting a new voice in. We get really intentional with it. And we imagine over and over. And we see ourselves in the scenarios when the old voice used to show up. And we just let that new voice come in. And we imagine that until it sets in. And you're going to be amazed and shocked at the next time that voice shows up for you. And you hear, you will persist until you succeed. And it's automatic. And so anytime you need to put something in there, that's the process. How long did that take? 3 minutes, 4 minutes? And you can start to program that new voice in. Was that helpful? That voice now shows up for me all the time. Anytime I want to quit something, I'm set on something, but I want to quit or I get tired, I just hear this, you will persist until you succeed. And I'm like, yeah, that's right. I guess I will. So I keep going. All right, does anyone want to share? And then Freddy's going to work his magic and give you some strengthening suggestions here. Anybody want to share? Does this help?
Can I ask how many of you have been to one of my presentations and have still got my singing voice in your head?
I definitely do.
And do you remember what it is?
It's just my imagination.
Okay. So, we can, if we can create an emotion, we can give a suggestion that sticks. And maybe I'll freak you all out with that. Because when I talk about nothing being real, and when I relate that to the past and the future, the future doesn't exist. It can only be imagined. The past is a vacuum. It's a void that stretches back to the Big Bang. That neither exists either. There is only this moment we're living in. And if you're feeling anxious about anything, you are imagining something in the future. And when you bring yourself back to the moment and remind yourself that it is just your imagination, then you can change it. You can imagine it differently. And I honestly believe that all of us can change our day, change our life when we're feeling anxious or worrying about the future, just by changing the pictures in our head and changing that imagination. So you do all have a chance to switch off before I plant this voice in your head forever. And because you will be stuck with it, like it or not. And so here's what's going to happen. Honestly, you have an opportunity to switch the sound off. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck with my voice in your head forever. And from today, this is what's going to happen. If you ever start to worry about something in the future, or you're getting anxious about something that hasn't happened yet, you are going to hear my voice in your head singing this song. Are you ready? It's just my imagination running away with me. Just my imagination running away with me. You'll hear that voice in your head and you'll immediately bring back to the moment, and you'll realize you don't have to live with that thought. You can change it. There you are. Now you're stuck with that voice in your head. You're laughing, but you won't be laughing in a few days' time when you hear it again. Okay. You know, I realize that we can change anything, you know, and I might have said it to you before, but one of my favorite quotes, Shakespearean quote, is this: we can be bound in a nutshell and still imagine ourselves as king of infinite space, were it not for bad dreams. Could be bound in a nutshell and still consider myself king of infinite space, were it not for bad dreams. In other words, nothing exists outside of our skull except its perception. And when we listen to the voice in our head, we could just ask, is that voice encouraging me? Is it empowering me or not? And we can change it to someone else's voice. All of you have people in your life that love you. All of you have someone in your life that wants the best for you. Change it to that voice. You know, I work with people for weight loss, and there are thousands of people out there that whenever they go to eat something, they hear my voice in their head asking this question: why are you about to eat? Is it because you're bored, emotional, or hungry? They're stuck with that. And if the answer comes back anything other than hungry, do something else. And you'll be amazed how often you're eating because you're bored or emotional. So you can, if the person's willing to do it and you warn them in advance that you're going to be stuck with that voice in your head, you can, like Nick has just done now, put a voice in your head for whenever you want to achieve something, whenever you're pushing towards a goal and you're about that point of failure. You know, and then you hear Nick's voice saying those words about persisting and succeeding. And now you're all stuck with my voice if you're ever starting to feel anxious, because you hear my voice singing that song in your mind. So you can use people that empower you, people that you've met, and use those voices. You don't have to live with that negative voice. Okay. Are there any questions or anything else before we get into this next piece?
I have one comment here first, Freddie, is first of all, I hope all of you see how easy it is to put an idea, a suggestion into someone's head and for it to stick with them. And so I want you to ask yourself, are there people in your life who hear your voice in their head? And if they do, is it positive? Something to think about. Freddie.
Right, let me just quickly say that, you know, my thinking on how we influence now, how we hypnotize. If I can create an emotion, I can give you a suggestion that is likely to stick, that will bypass any kind of resistance. And I'll give you a demo of this now if I haven't done it already, okay? Let's do this. Just put your arm out in front of you at shoulder height. Okay, put your arm out at shoulder height. Look at me in the camera and think about the people you love most, whether that's your kids, your partner, your mother, your father, your brother, your sister, maybe your pet. But think about the person you love most on this planet. See that face, feel that love. And as you feel that love, I want you to notice your arms hanging there all by itself. Imagine now there's nothing you can do about that. And when you realize there's nothing you can do about it, I want you to try and get that arm down and find you cannot. And I don't want you to pretend. Push as hard as you can, find it goes even higher. Put some effort in, come on. You're strong people, push even harder, find it goes even higher. Are you hypnotized? Are you in a trance? Why can't you get your arms down? And look at that arm. Is it even your arm? Now, we could operate on that arm now and you wouldn't even feel it. I'm going to count to 3 and your arm will drift down. Your eyes will close for a split second. And when it opens, you'll realize how powerful emotion and words are in your head. 1, feeling wonderful. 2, to create that life you want, do it brilliantly and fearlessly. 3, a feeling of freedom from every limitation as the arm drifts down. Now, I want you to think about this. You can open your eyes. Those who haven't got their eyes open your eyes. I want you to think about this one simple piece of information. I'm sure it works both ways, but how many women have a brilliant day, maybe with their kids, or have had a good day, their partner has a rotten day, they come in and the woman's happy and feeling great and the partner's not. And they say something to that woman that affects them emotionally. And maybe then tells them they're not any good as a mother or not any good as a woman or whatever it might be. In that moment, they've created an emotion, they've changed an emotion, and they've given a suggestion. Now, if that happens enough times, that is no different than me saying, think about the people you love and notice your arm stuck in the air and you have nothing, you can't do anything about it. That is no different. That person, that partner, the husband, and I'm not saying it doesn't work both ways. I'm sure it does work both ways, but that person is not a hypnotist. I would never say they're a hypnotist, but that suggestion that that person's not any good has gone in. It's gone in without any resistance. And if it happens enough times, that person begins to believe that that is the truth, and it's not. It was someone else's opinion. And so what I'm asking you to do, because now so many of us are walking around with those voices that aren't ours, that we sound like ours because we don't know any other voice in our head. And when you recognize that and you listen to it like we have done today, recognize where that voice comes from, we can say, no, that was only ever someone else's opinion. And it was never true. I'm telling you all now, the core of your being, the essence of who you are, and I mean this with everyone that's on this call, is pure light and joy and love. That is who you are. And everything that's not that has been suggested to you. And you see, that then that voice, like, Jenny said for years, she had a voice saying, you're not worthy, you're not worthy. And that's what she believed, because that voice, and that's come from somewhere else. That's not come. She wasn't born with that voice in her head. What I'm saying to you is, if it's the negative voice in your head, the chances are it's not yours. And I'm saying to you, have a tight time out to listen to it, recognize it for what it is, and say, no, it was only ever someone else's opinion. It's not true. Remember, because I'm going to get you into that space in a moment, you're going to understand that the essence of who you are, the core of your being, is pure light, energy, and love. That is who you are. And everything that's not that has been suggested to you. And if you're feeling not worthy, the only way you can feel that is by judging yourself, comparing yourself to others. You're not tall enough. You're not blonde enough. You're not strong enough. You're not whatever enough. That's only comparing to others. You've got to realize, and I keep saying it to you, that you are already the most incredible creation. If you're a religious person, then you have to believe you are created in the image of the maker. And we've got to, if you believe that, then you realize how incredible you are. Every one of you, I don't care how old you are, or what you look in the mirror and see, you're already the most incredible creation. And anything that's not that in your head is not your voice. So I'm going to ask you in a moment to go into hypnosis and have a listen to some of those voices. And anything that's not on your side, I want you to turn that sound off. And you can say, okay, well, that's driving me. you know, that voice, that negative voice has driven me to be successful. My mother's voice has driven me to be successful. And my mother's voice was only ever positive. It was never negative. And it was never, you know, it was never harsh. It doesn't have to be a harsh voice. It doesn't have to be a negative voice. Think about the people that love you. Think about your reasons for wanting to be everything you can be. But realize that you're already the whole being. You're already enough. And that's okay. It's great to want things and to want, you know, to be as healthy as you can be and be successful as you can be. That's great. But you have to always remember you're already the most incredible creation. You're already enough. You're already the whole being. From that point of view, you can drive. I'm not even going to use the word drive. You can encourage yourself to be everything you can be without feeling that you have to do that for someone else. Like Jenny said, you know, suddenly it's become about being kinder to herself, you know, and finding a love for herself that's made the difference. It's not a negative voice that's driving Jenny forward. It's a positive voice. You know, it's a voice of feeling good about herself. So I want you to listen to this voice when we go into this quiet space for a while. Recognize that any negative voice that you've had in the past, because we're in this moment, was never yours in the first place. And start to be a bit kinder to yourself and treat yourself with the same kindness that you treat the people you love. And if you wouldn't speak to your child the way you speak to yourself, then maybe you should change the way you're speaking to yourself. If you wouldn't speak to someone you love the way you speak to yourself, then change the way you're speaking to yourself. You know, and as Jenny said, most of the problems before she suddenly changed her life, and now she's on this path, you know, every time you meet Jenny, and I've met her a couple of times in Ireland, you know, she's pure joy. And what changed was understanding that you cannot read minds and you do not know what other people are thinking. They must be thinking this of me. They must be thinking that of me. No, they are not. Most people are caught up in their own stuff. Once that understanding hits you, you go, no, I don't know what people are thinking. I might as well assume they think I'm great or think I'm good. Because either way, I don't know what they're thinking. Which one of those empowers me? So let's have a listen to this voice and realize, and I'm going to get you to that space. I want you all to understand that you are the most incredible creation. And the core of your being is pure light and love and energy. That's who you are. Anything else is just a voice in your head. And it's not, it was probably someone else's opinion. It was never true. Okay, you ready? You ready to change your life and change your understanding of this? Take a breath in. Hold it for a moment. Now, as you breathe out, allow your eyes to close. Take another breath in and open your eyes. Now, as you breathe out, close your eyes. Let's do this one more time. Take a deep breath in, hold it for a moment. And as you breathe out, close your eyes and let your body relax. Just imagine that's happening automatically. Get a sense of that happening. Imagine there's nothing you can do about that. No matter how relaxed your mind and body become, the chair will support you. Get a sense of just dropping down through space and time, down toward that place of total bliss, total freedom, a place where everything becomes possible. Get a sense of that now. Imagine that's happening automatically. Every word I say takes you deeper and deeper. Imagine there's nothing you can do about that. And the deeper you go, the better you're going to feel. And the better you feel, the deeper you're going to go into that space. And as you go into that space, we're going to have that experience again of drifting up out of your body and leaving your physical body in that chair for a moment. Get a sense of that now, just drifting up out of your body, the essence of who you are, that intangible part of your being, the passenger, the observer in that physical body. Just get a sense of drifting up out of your body through the top of your head, what's known as the crown chakra. Get a sense of that, drifting up out through the top of your head. And I want you for a moment, as you drift away from your body, to look back at that body and show it some appreciation. How incredible is your body? Your body is the most incredible creation. Just think about that. How incredible is your body? Make a decision to look after that body and take care of that body. Make that decision now. And notice as you drift away from your body that the essence of who you are is ageless and it's infinite and it has no edge. Get a sense of that now. And as you drift in that space, I want you to get a sense of it now, that the essence of who you are is pure light, energy, and love. That is who you are. The pure natural intelligence that you were born with. And that everything else that is not that energy of light and love has been placed on you and was never yours in the first place. And anything that is not on your side is not you. The essence of who you are is geared for you to thrive. And given the right circumstances and environment, you will thrive. And anything that is taking you away from thriving is not you. It was suggested to you. It was placed on you. That is not who you are. You are not your past. You are not your traumas. Get a sense of that now and just listen to that voice in your head changing. Hear that voice starting to encourage you and to remind you of just how beautiful you are as a being, how incredible you are as a being. To remind you that you are kind, you're loving, and you are love. Get a sense of that now. And feel into that feeling of unconditional self-love. Get a sense of it again now. And notice as that feeling of unconditional self-love floods through your body and mind, every negative voice is quietened. You cannot hear it because it cannot coexist in your body and mind with that feeling of unconditional self-love. And the harder you try and remember what that voice sounded like, that negative voice, the further away it goes. And imagine that's happening and there is nothing you can do about it. And I don't know, it'll be a minute from now or an hour from now or 20 years from now when you suddenly realize that that voice was silenced right here, right now, replaced by a new understanding about your worth and your value and just how incredible you are. Get a sense of that now as that negative voice is silenced. You cannot hear it. You cannot experience it again. And the harder you try and remember what it sounded like, the more distant it becomes. From today, you'll hear my voice in your head, and you'll know that I believe it. You are love, and you are loved, and you are loving. If you ever doubt yourself again, you'll hear my voice in your head. You are love, and you are loved, and you are loving. And you'll know that it's true. And the essence of who you are is pure light and love and energy and pure intelligence. And you have within you all the resources, all the strength, all the natural intelligence you need to create the life you want. I don't know, it'll be a minute from now, or an hour from now, or maybe 20 years from now, when you suddenly realize that every one of those negative voices that never belonged to you in the first place disappeared from your mind right here, right now, replaced by that new voice, that new understanding that you are worthy, you are love, and you are loved, and you are loving. Get a sense of that now. In a moment, I'm going to count to 10. And when you drift back up, on 8, your eyes will open. You're going to feel incredible. And the harder you try and remember that, hear that negative voice, further away it goes. It was never yours in the first place. You'll realize that. And on 10, that new understanding, that feeling of empowerment, that new encouraging voice in your head is going to grow stronger day by day. 1, feeling absolutely wonderful. 2, to create the life you absolutely want. 3, a feeling of freedom from every limitation that was ever placed on you. 4, feel the force of that energy, freedom and light flooding through your body now. 5, feeling incredibly alive. 6, 7, 8, eyes opening, feeling absolutely incredible. 9, 10. Try and hear that voice now and find you cannot. Imagine that every negative voice in your head that ever held you back has gone, and there is nothing you can do about that. Placed by a new understanding. Is Nicholas still there, or is he gone?
I got kicked off for a minute, but I'm back.
Okay. I thought you someone disappeared in trance somewhere. Okay, look, I hand over to you, Nick, your last words.
Yeah, that was great. I'd love to hear any last thoughts from any of you if anybody wants to share. But Freddie, I don't know about you, but they look like a persistent and worthy group, don't they?
They are. They
They
are.
are. That's right. Maybe that's why they look that way.
Yeah. And no matter how hard or whatever's going on, you will persist in turning up on a Thursday.
You will persist until next Thursday.
Exactly. I hope you all enjoyed the session anyway. And if you've got any questions before we sign off, please let us know.
And we always appreciate comments in the Facebook group because then that encourages more people to come in. So if you had a good experience and you want to leave a comment in the Facebook group, we would appreciate that. And yeah, I put out three new topics, but I don't remember what they are now. So you'll have to show up next week and figure it out. And Diana, you made a comment that you had trouble getting in. It's the same Facebook or it's the same Zoom link every week. So once you're registered, you can just put that on your calendar and show up. If you want to bring a friend, If you want
It's
to bring a friend,
fine
send them to the
now. It's
registration
just I
page.
didn't have my registration. But
Okay.
I've got it now. Thank you. It
Right,
was
good.
easy.
Good. So if you want to bring somebody, send them to the registration page. But once you have the Zoom link, you can just use that. Oh, Diane, I think you're.
Tell them that they have to wait an hour or two before it comes through. In my case, it was a day, but that's fine.
All right.
Oh,
sweet.
for the email. Oh, with the. Let me check that. It might be on my end.
Can I just say hello, Karen? Karina? Karina? You've got Karen on your thing, but threw me off. Karina, how are you? Karina works with children, and she's not only got her own voice, she's got a fox that has a voice as well. That whispers to her.
He does. He does.
Yeah.
I knew
If you've ever seen Karina working with a fox, yeah, she's got a fox that speaks to kids as well, which is incredible.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. He says to say hello to you, Freddie. There's my dog saying hello. He's a big fan of yours also, Freddie. So he says hello.
What, the dog?
And the dog also. Because when
Oh,
you
right.
started
Oh, good,
talking,
good.
he came
Yeah.
over and he started talking.
Yeah, I have a whole fan club of dogs following me. Yeah.
Oh, thank you for tonight.
All right. Well, I think we're going to sign off there. If everyone's had enough, and you've got no more questions, and you're all out of trance.
Thank you,
I
Freddie.
hope you
Thank you,
really
Nikki.
enjoyed it.
That was great.
Thanks for
We'll
coming,
see you
everybody.
again next week. All
See
right.
you next week.
Oh,
Have a good weekend. Have a good
can I quickly
weekend,
say,
everyone.
can I
Bye.
quickly say, just quickly before you all go, on the 13th of March, in collaboration with the College of Medicine and Integrated Health here in the UK, but it's all over the world, I'm trying to get together the biggest group ever on a Zoom call to get them to quit smoking. I've got Zoom 1,000, get 1,000 people on. I'd love to get 1,000 people quitting smoking in one session on Zoom. So if you're check, it's on Facebook somewhere. Anybody that wants to quit, it's free. Okay, it's free. It's exclusive for the college members, and it's free for all college members. And it's only if you're not already a member of the college, it's really worth joining. It's £30 for the year, and they're the bridge between the kind of alternative world of therapy that we are, if you like, we're in, and the conventional medicine. And so they do great work, and they've got the best doctors in the world kind of as involved in that. And not only if you know someone wants to quit, if they can join that for 30 quid and then quit, but there's so many other things. They have all the latest info on alternative health. They do trainings, they do lectures, and so just bear that in mind and send them along. I'd love to get a massive group of people who want to quit smoking on it or vaping. All right. So if you know anybody, keep an ear out and send them along.
I'm going to do a free start smoking sessions ahead of time just to get people to Freddie stop smoking sessions. So
yeah, thanks. Yeah.
we're going to really load you up there, Freddie.
People on it. So, but if you're a hypnotherapist, you just want to see how I work with smokers, then, join up, come and do it and pretend you're a smoker. Just keep coughing a lot and I'll think you are. All right. Anyway, I'll see you all later. Lovely to see you.
See you soon.
Bye now.
Thanks very much, guys.
Hey, see you next Friday, Helen.
Take
Thanks,
care. Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.